I went skydiving, I went Rocky Mountain climbing, I went 2.7 seconds on a...
Our next big talker is Eddie Oakley. Now, the responsibilities of a principal are some that only a small number of people understand. The responsibilities of a principal whose school is hosting opening day are probably even more misunderstood. Of course, Eddie Oakley falls into both of those categories. He's done a tremendous job today getting his school ready, and we thank him for his hospitality. Today, Mr. Oakley's big talk is going to be about legacy. It's something that I think he's well aware of. He's been a coach, he's been an administrator, he's been an educator for over 30 years professionally. He's left his fingerprint on his world. His drive and his down-to-earth manner endear him to those he meets. As a son, and a father, and a husband, his legacy will stand long after him. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Eddie Oakley.
A couple weeks ago when Mr. Nyhoff asked me to do this, I'm thinking, legacy? Really? How long have I been doing this? It seems like yesterday I just started. So now I'm standing up here trying to talk about legacy. Well, being a good educator, I do what most people would do. I looked up the word legacy in the Webster's Dictionary to make sure that I knew what I was talking about. And in Webster's it says, something transmitted by or received from an ancestor, predecessor, or from the past. So I have a little story to tell you. Back in the early days in Chicago, a guy by the name of Al Capone kind of terrorized the city, leaving his will and doing whatever he wanted to in that city. Well, he had a guy that kept him out of jail and other places, a guy by the name of Easy Eddie. Easy Eddie was his lawyer. And because of how well he did and kept Al Capone out of jail, Easy Eddie was given many gifts. Al Capone treated him to a wealthy lifestyle, gave him many things. A city block. But as time went on, Easy Eddie, having a son now, realized that he wasn't giving back to his son and leading the life that he wanted his son to see. There was two things he couldn't give him. He couldn't give him his good name. He couldn't give him that example of how you're supposed to live your life. So Easy Eddie decided it's time for him to change his life. He's got to come clean for his son, to show his son the real way. So he did. He testified against Al Capone. Within a year, Easy Eddie was dead. Laying in the streets of Chicago when the police found him, he had three things in his pocket. A crucifix, some rosary beads, and this coin. The clock of life is wound but once, and no man has the power to tell just when the hands will stop at late or early hour. Now is the only time you own. Live, love, toil with a will. Place no faith in time, for the clock may soon be still. 30 years ago when I started this, I think I was a lot like Easy Eddie. It was about being a legend, not leaving a legacy. I was a young coach, thought that I could win a state tournament every year. In the 90s, early 90s, I got my first head coaching job. I was at Nicholas County High School. I was doing a basketball camp at the University of Kentucky. Who was there? Tricky Ricky, from now at Louisville. Coach Pitino asked a group of coaches one afternoon, what was our goals? What were we going to do? What we want to do with this profession? And being young and cocky, I told him I wanted his job when he retired. But as kids touch you throughout your career, you're going to see that things change. Your ambitions, your goals change. As I was still thinking about this legacy thing, I was in Lexington visiting my parents one Sunday afternoon. Michelle was working, as usual, and so I was driving home alone, and I was thinking about this legacy thing and what I was going to talk about. Well, my middle name is Clark. If you've ever rode on US 60 between Versailles and Frankfurt, if you look to your right, there's this big sign that I never noticed. But as I'm driving thinking about legacy, this sign pops up right here on the right, and it says, Clark Legacy Center. Okay? I didn't know what Clark Legacy Center was, so when I got home, I Googled it, found it. It's a crematory. They have funeral homes. They have all kinds of things, cemeteries. So I thought, wow, legacy. When it's your time, they're going to write something about you. Somebody's Duane Puckett, Ryan, they're going to write something in the newspaper. Mr. Todd Mark, they're going to write something in the paper about you. You're going to have your family put something on your headstone. What is he going to say? I think and I hope that when that happens, that it'll say that Eddie Oakley was about kids. That he came every day. For 30 years, he gave. Hopefully not just 30 years, more than 30 years, but he gave. He cared about the kids. The kids knew that he cared about them. Whether we're in this community or in other communities around the state that I've taught and coached in, my wife will say, how do you know that kid? What is that kid saying to you? I mean, how do you remember these people? In 30 years, I've tried to build relationships with every kid in the building if possible, to know that I care about them, that someone cares about them, it's a safe place. When they come back and tell you their stories, they tell you the stories about what they're doing now and how they're living their life. About 8 to 10 years ago, I got an email from a kid that played soccer for me in Danville, Kentucky. He was a wild man. On the field, and you can't sub in soccer, you soccer coaches know that. I'd just take him out of the game and play with less people because he would not act right, he would not behave, he was not representing our school, he was not being the person I knew he could be. Every day, every game, I had to pull him out for at least 2 or 3 minutes. We played short. About 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago, I got an email from him. He was sitting in the desert in one of those foreign soils with a big machine gun in his hand, and he thinks of me. That's good and bad. But the story he told me was about how he appreciated me holding him to a standard to not take anything but his best. So when these kids come back everywhere I go, and it seems like every time I turn around somebody's coming up to me, I guess it goes with age. But they're coming back, they're telling me my legacy and what I meant to them throughout the years. Looking back at that definition of legacy, it says received from the past. Well, where did I receive it from? My dad is 75 years old. For 33 years, I watched him go to IBM in Lexington every day, work in that factory, and every afternoon he would get out of there and he would come to a baseball field or some sporting, whether it be little league, basketball, baseball, whatever, and make sure that his kids were involved in something every day. He's been in the Committee of 101. Any of y'all know anything about the University of Kentucky? Committee of 101 is the blue coats. They park cars, they seat people at the University of Kentucky. He has been in the same corner at Rupp Arena for over 40 years. There are kids that come through that tunnel every year that say hello to him, and he treats right. 2 years ago, I was at a Martha Lane Collins football game with my dad, because my nephew was playing, Lafayette was playing the football team at Martha Lane. We were out there visiting and watching the game. Charles Hurt, who played here in Shelby County, stopped dead in his tracks and looked at my dad. You're the guy in the corner. He remembers my dad because my dad treated him the same way every time. What did I get from him? Hard work ethic, never giving up, and treating people the way that you want to be treated.